Time Worm from Richard Short brings us in. Welcome to episode 75 of the LOTD Pod, the Left of the Dial podcast. I'm Flick, and along with me is...
This is Richard Shirk in Oakland, California. And yes, that was the Time Worm from my new album, With Clairvoyance. Available everywhere.
Everywhere. Literally everywhere.
And if it's not everywhere, send me an email. I'll send you one for free.
So if you're like stopping for gas and it's not at your local convenience store,
it's right there in the gas station next to like the generic best of reggae CDs.
Yeah, so
just look for it. Look for it.
Look hard. Yeah, look hard for that. It is episode 75, and we will be releasing this on the morning of St. Patrick's Day.
Let's just pretend it's St. Patrick's Day right now.
Yeah, let's do that because that will give it more of a festive sort of feel to it. So yes, It is St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to it. And today we will be celebrating Irish bands with St. Patrick's playlists.
That's right. That's right.
Volume 2, a show that we did last year at this time. Sequels are tough for me anyway. Like this is Richard wasn't here for the show last year, so he's starting fresh. But me, I had to make a volume 2, and so no repeats. But yeah, I had to deal with what you deal with. Basically the same thing they dealt with when making Ghostbusters 2. It's just like, how do you do this? How do you recapture the magic, but not repeat yourself?
Yeah. I didn't have to deal with that because, as you mentioned, I am freshly instantiated, as we say in showbiz.
That is what we say.
So I want to say to our Irish and Irish Gaelic speaking listeners, Sláinte and Gia Giwitcha.
And for us non-Gaelic speakers,
cheers and hello.
Okay, good. And I know very little, so I'm not even going to attempt to give any sort of salutation in Gaelic or anything to that effect.
That's fine. You can just hang out over there and sip on your ishkabaha.
Yeah.
It's your whiskey, which is I think water of life, I think is the traditional or the translation of that. I should
have probably poured myself a shot or a glass of whiskey to be more festive. Let's just pretend I'm doing that as well.
Yeah, let's pretend. I'm sipping on some rainwater, but that's just how I roll.
Yeah, I am not fully prepared, but I am prepared to the point where I have a playlist ready to go.
Well, Sean, before we start talking music, what is your history with St. Patrick's Day? Are you from an Irish background?
I'm not. And I'm not a big bar guy, so I don't enjoy that scene or anything. Any of the norms for St. Patrick's Day, at least in America. I have a friend that was of Irish heritage, and when I lived in Chicago, and he lived in Chicago, he moved away. He used to have great parties on St. Patrick's Day with corned beef and cabbage, and of course all the beers that you could hope for, and just all kinds of other great Irish food. And so that was always like very enjoyable to me. And then he moved away, and the St. Patrick's Day after he moved away was also a really cool one because I didn't know what to do. So I saw that there was a Thin Lizzy tribute band playing at a place, pretty close to where I lived. And I was like, well, that seals it. I have to do that.
You have to do that. Yeah.
And it was great. And so those are like the best St. Patrick's Day celebrations that I've been a part of. But other than those years, not such a big thing for me personally.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm a non-drinking vegetarian, so I don't. And even if there wasn't coronavirus, I think I'm still the guy who's not going to celebrate something just because everyone else is. But I am 7% Irish, and my people are from County Wicklow and County Cavan. So there you go.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't have any Irish lineage that I'm aware of, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to my sister Kate, who is the keeper of our genealogy. So she's given me a lot of good history about where our people come from. Lots of good stories attached. The one story she doesn't have is my how I ended up being part Japanese. So that was interesting to find out.
Wow. So, but not half Japanese, just part Japanese.
I do love that band. I am 1% Japanese according to my DNA.
So you and Jad Fair together would be
We'd
like,
get along totally because you've seen me play guitar. I've seen him play guitar. We're breaking the rules.
yeah, and if you put the two of you together, then you'd be mostly Japanese.
51%.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really curious about your tunes that you put together for because you've done this before for last year's St. Patrick's Day show. So what are your feelings in general about putting together a good St. Patrick's Day playlist? Like,
They're not the norm. We'll say they're a bit outside. Like this isn't a party playlist. Although I tried to keep it upbeat. I understand that you want to keep things up tempo and all of that, but being a party playlist also requires familiarity, and that is an element that I lack. Last year's playlist had a bit more of that because it was the first edition. Still, though, I think for the normal person, you are probably going to hear a lot of U2 and a lot of Van Morrison.
and I can't really object to that. Like
No,
that's okay. Yeah.
you're going to hear a bit of that on my list, but it's just outside of that, it's going to be something that is probably going to get turned off at the general St. Patrick's Day party. But
Which we're not invited to anyway.
that's right. Yeah,
Even in a
for
normal year.
this
Even
reason
non-flight
and
year.
probably other reasons on top of it.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me about your playlist. What do we start with?
Okay, so we're starting off with a band. Well, most of these bands are repeat bands, but not repeat songs, and this is no exception. So one of my favorite bands in recent years is an Irish band from Dublin, Fontaine's DC, and their album Doggerel, which came out in 2019. Also one of my favorite albums in recent years. And last year on my playlist, I included the song Boys in the Better Land from that album, which is, an amazing song. Like, I think that that's such a great song that even if you don't know that, I think that deserves to be rocking the party. But this year, I went with Liberty Bell from the same album. They did have a follow-up album last year, which I didn't quite like as much, but I do like. And the debut album, Doggerel, though, is great. And Liberty Bell, I think, is a really good place to start. It's a really good table setter. Really, maybe not quite a sing-along song, which I think is you want that as part of your St. Patrick's Day playlist. It might take a little longer for this to be a sing-along song for you, but if you get to that point, it's going to be going to be totally effective as a sing-along song.
I like it. I think it's you know, I'm new to the band. I'm listening to them right now, and I love it. Sounds like, have you seen them live? Is that usually a question that I know the answer to when I'm talking to you, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, being as how they debuted in 2019, and last year obviously wasn't a chance to do that. I haven't had the chance to see them live yet, but I will definitely at the first opportunity. Like they're really at the top of the list. Like my wish list for when live music is when it makes a comeback. I really would like to see them live and hope that I get the opportunity to do so before too long.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Great. I love it. I put that album in my new jams. I'm gonna listen to that later.
Yeah, well, and make sure to include "Boys in the Better Land." So if you are listening to the whole album, maybe start with that and then go back through the album because that's a really killer track.
Cool. Fontaine's DC.
Yeah.
Oh, they're writing us in the chat. They're big fans. We're big fans of them. They're big fans of us.
That's good.
Okay. There's no chat. Yeah. So I started out with I don't have like the soundtrack from The Departed kind of thing going on. I tried to. I guess a lot of these tunes are kind of more traditional and mellow, which is that would be just totally chill afternoon over here at our place in Oakland. So we start out with a tune called Ora Shide Bahaweya by Screaming Orphans. Screaming Orphans are a group comprised of cousins, the divers cousins from Bundoran, County Donegal. I first heard about this band because they're my boss's Irish cousins, and he's like, we kind of we're pals as well as colleagues, so we were just kind of chatting about that, and I looked him up on Facebook during our more than 1 year long quarantine adventure, and they're kind of like the monkeys in some ways. Like I think they all live in this same house, and it seems like every time I turn on Facebook, they're doing a live performance, and they're really fun because you're live streaming right into their basement practice space, and they're really talented women. I think they toured the U.S. making a circuit of the Irish festivals. So I'm sure you can find them coming to your neck of the woods for all of our national listeners. So yeah, Screaming Orphans. Their track, I have no idea what it means. Ora Shide Bahaweya.
Yeah, so you're not that well versed in the Gaelic that you have a.
No, I've never been great at languages, but I really enjoy them. So I've I don't really have that much Gaelic. I have some Latin. I took probably about a semester's worth of Hawaiian, and I'm a year into Spanish, and I have some French. But yeah, Irish Gaelic is definitely a project for me because at some point I would like to get over there and kind of see the place. I've been to the UK when I was a kid, but maybe it's a big cliche about people who are like 7% Irish being like, "Oh, my homeland,"
Mm-hmm.
But it would be it would be good. I've got some I'm more Scottish than Irish, and I've got some ancestral castles that I need to check out too. So
Yeah, well, and me not even having any lineage that I'm aware of anyway. I kind of feel this week just kind of putting together my playlist. I'm like, Yeah, maybe I could live in Ireland.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so I don't think you're alone in that. Like even without any sort of DNA connection for me, I feel like yeah, I would really like to visit there. Uh, I could do that at the drop of the hat. I feel like
Well, if you tell them that you know me, you can hang out at the castle.
that's right. I have a somewhat
Give it
Irish friend,
give it
and
in. Yeah.
all right. So my number two. Last year's playlist started with Thin Lizzy, and they were certainly going to be included in this year's playlist. Last year, I went for pretty on the nose with their cover of Whiskey in the Jar. This year, not so much a traditional Irish song by them, but a song that I think really captures the spirit. That Irish optimism. Um, which is often optimism in the face of horrible things. But the song that I chose is "Do Anything You Want to Do" from Black Rose, a rock legend. Um, we've talked a bit about Thin Lizzy off the mics, and this is another track worth checking out if you're still on the fence about Thin Lizzy. Uh, and another thing we've talked about the Mick Ronson guitar sound, where he's kind of using the keeping the wah wah somewhat open.
Yeah, that trademark Mick Ronson like grit.
Yeah, and
Just tone.
you'll hear that in the Thin Lizzy guitars as well. So I don't know. To me, that combination of those guitars, the way that they sound, and the way that they play with each other, and then the charisma of Phil Lynott. It's just it's a winning combination. I love Thin Lizzy.
I totally trust your taste. So I'm gonna jump into some Thin Lizzy. I've been meaning to. I've been putting it off because I've also followed you into Premier League soccer. So
That's right.
you know,
And not just Premier League soccer, but the world of Liverpool Football Club.
yeah, LFC
Yeah.
all the way. But yeah, Thin Lizzy, I like it. They sound loud, and I'm just I love the bass sound too. It's a good pick. Thank you.
Yeah, and I strongly recommend the self-titled album. That's a pretty good place to start. So
You got it.
definitely,
And listeners, you heard it here first.
that's right.
That's right. So yeah. So Sean and I do talk a lot off the mic, but when the financing for our reality TV show comes through, like you won't have to worry about that because it's all gonna be there. Uh, so following up your Thin Lizzy track and my Screaming Orphans track, I have a really pretty tune by the Cranberries called "Dreaming My Dream," which is from the same album. It's from No Need to Argue, which was a huge album in 1994. This, I guess, would be considered maybe one of the deeper cuts on that album. Just a really pretty, mostly acoustic tune. And Dolores O'Riordan is from County Limerick. May she rest in peace. She died at a very tragically young age in 2018.
So you know what? I'm going to throw a bonus track onto mine because as I talked a little bit to you before we started the show, I was teetering on putting "Linger" on my playlist. So I'm going to put that on there.
Do it, yeah. Our
Yeah,
fans will thank you. It's a nice
yeah,
song, and yeah, like we were talking about, just because a song was a hit doesn't mean that it's not a great tune.
yeah. So that's going to go in toward the end of my playlist. My third song is by a band that I think you maybe have heard of them. It's a band. It consists of Bono and a guy who goes by the name The Edge. I don't know if that's what's on his passport.
It
Like,
is, yeah.
do you think it is? Does it
yeah.
say on his passport? Does it say The Edge?
It does.
Larry Mullen Jr. and then the other guy. Who's the other guy? Adam Clayton. And so last year I had Where the Streets Have No Name, which is pretty well-known track, but I couldn't resist doing it because I love that. I love the intro to that track. I probably shouldn't dwell too much on the track that I had on last year's playlist and spend more time on this one. The track from this year's playlist is In a Little While from All That You Can't Leave Behind, and it's I put this on here because it's one of my favorite. It really is like way up there on my U2 list, which I'm not a huge U2 aficionado, but they have enough songs that I can put together a pretty good, pretty tight playlist. And I love the guitar riffing that the Edge does on the track, and it's just a really nice sounding, really I don't know. Mellow is kind of the word, although it's a word I hesitate to use because it just kind of makes me think of certain sort of mindset that I'm not really going for usually. But it really is like a nice mellow track.
Yeah, no, I'm a mellow dude, so I'm gonna just always defend my fellow.
Your fellow mellows.
Yeah, right on, man.
All right. Well,
Me and Donovan.
One, I hope that you like this track as well.
Yeah, it's a good tune. And The Edge is David Evans, probably on his passport, making stocking hats cool since 1961.
The beanie.
I like the beanie. Yeah, his head is always warm. I used to kind of look down on U2 until I spent some time with the Edge in the documentary It Might Get Loud.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I read more about the group and how they work, especially from Brian Eno's point of view, in both his biography and also in his memoir, which I think is out of print but coming back in print. It's called A Year of Swollen Appendices, and is a great read about how Brian Eno's brain works. Brian Eno, as many of our listeners know, longtime producer of U2, kind of, I wouldn't say like responsible for their sound, but definitely a big player. And one of the interesting things about that band is a point that he makes, that they're probably the only band that he could name, and he knows a lot of bands because he's Brian Eno, that he could name, that truly you need like all four people to make the songwriting process work. So it's not just, sometimes it has been just the Edge going off to a cottage and writing an album like War, and then handing it over and kind of working with Bono on how to sing it. But really collaborative band, and same four guys since whenever they formed, like 1976 or something. A lot of respect for them, even though they are like totally cheesy sometimes. And I went to a U2 concert, first one I've ever seen, and went with my buddy Rand, we should have him on the show. He's a huge music nerd, really knowledgeable fellow about lots of bands. So I went with him and his lovely wife Lisa, and we saw them in U2. Saw them in San Jose. And I don't think I was really expecting much, but you can tell that they're a really tight band. They've known each other for ages, and I walked away, having a lot of respect for them. And I also think that if you're not aware of some of their more like avant-garde detours in the early 90s especially, yeah, you can kind of think of them as like, the band that's on at the gym,
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you want to know, like, if I'm going to analyze why I'm a bit tepid on YouTube, because I do like the early stuff, but then to me, actually, it's something you might not think about, but from 1993 on, just looking at their discography now, there's always, well, not always, I guess occasionally there's 3 years between albums, but usually it's more like 4 or 5 years between albums. So if they come out with an album that's not so good, then that's basically like a 9 year period where where U2 hasn't put out anything that is, that I find likable. So that has a really bad effect, like that just makes you think, they're, and all the while, like a big part of the reason why they probably only come out with an album every 4 or 5 years is because they're so huge that that they can. I guess that affords them the opportunity to only come out with an album every 4 or 5 years. But then also, maybe they feel like everything has to be at a certain level in order for it to be worth that kind of weight. But then, if the album isn't that good, then it might be a whole decade or more where there isn't anything that they put out that's to my liking.
Yeah, that's really tough. And just from like the showbiz perspective of it, yeah, once you get to be a certain size of band, um, and you've written an album, yeah, there's probably like a lot of either hesitation or rush to get an album out because you know that if you're an arena band at that scale, every album that you put out means that like thousands of people go to work on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf, whether it's your live crew, your publicity people, your lawyers. Um, so I mean, every song, pretty much, even if you're just like an artist that no one listens to on Bandcamp, carries like a certain dollar value in studio production and when you get to be a bigger band, like, oh, well, you've got to fly someone in from France, because they're a tax exile, book the best studio. So yeah, you like write a little song in 20 minutes on your guitar, and then if you look at it from the business angle, it's like if you're a scrappy musician and you're going to put that out, it's like, oh well, that's $100, $200. But scale of U2, you write like a throwaway song, and it's like $100,000 throwaway song, at least.
Yeah.
But I definitely was jamming on some U2 when I was researching this list, and I'm a huge fan of the kind of double album of Achtung Baby and Zooropa. So I put Dirty Day from Zooropa, which is a weird atmospheric building tune that I really like. It really captures a lot of, I think, what they were going through, and you can kind of hear some Brian Eno fingerprints. And yeah, and I think it kind of speaks to our time right now. Good tune.
Cool. Yeah. So my next band is another Dublin band. It's the four out of four for Dublin so far. My list. I promise you, my list is not entirely Dublin oriented, but so far it is. The next band on here is the Thrills. From the album Let's Bottle Bohemia, which I believe was their sophomore effort, and the song is "Tell Me Something I Don't Know." I had the Thrills on my playlist last year uh, with let me see. I'm not sure now which track it was. I think it was. Let me see here. One Horse Town from So Much for the City, and So Much for the City. Again, they're a Dublin band, but very California, like it's California rock by way of Dublin. So it has a very interesting sound to it, but probably sounds more like California than Dublin. But a really cool album, and I think probably a lot lesser known would be their follow up albums to that. And so I wanted to include a track from the second album, Let's Ball Bohemia. That's
Cool. Yeah, I love it.
my number 4.
As a Californian, I endorse this band playing Californian pop music. Yeah, good. Another good pick. And yeah, I like that you're showing up with a lot of like good punchy rock and roll songs, and I've got kind of all the weep ballads. So
I tried to keep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried to be as festive as possible because I know it's not going to be the typical party playlist, but I wanted to keep that spirit intact.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, you keeping things balanced. So, next on my list, I have A Pair of Brown Eyes by the Pogues from their second album. And yeah, I mean, everyone thinks about the Pogues on St. Patrick's Day. Shane MacGowan is actually English, but his parents are from Dublin. So I think that makes it all right.
Yeah, and I have as my number 8 track. I have Sally McLennan from the Pogues. Last year I had Tuesday Morning, which is a song that doesn't very much sound like any other Pogue songs, but I like it a lot. And I again, I don't want to talk as much about last year. It's still out there if you want to check out the last year's playlist. But Sally McLennan, which very much a sing along sort of song, and definitely a festive St. Patrick's Day song.
I love it. Yeah, and yeah, and just so our listeners know, you can check out these playlists on the LOTD Pod Spotify account. Did I mention that correctly?
You did, and and you want to look for Shamrockin to find this year's playlist.
That's right. So yeah, there's Shamrockin, two versions of it. One is mine, one is Flick's.
Side A, side B.
Side A, side B. It's the tape era. So yeah, good tunes by the Pogues, and I think we've got another pair of tunes by the Undertones. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. We could. And well, that would be they're Dublin too, right?
No, they're from Derry, Northern Ireland.
All right.
So yeah, I love the Undertones. I think Fergal Sharkey has like such a weird, interesting voice. Like he always sounds like he has stage fright or something, and I really like that.
Yeah, he does have a very very interesting voice. So Hypnotized, the title track from the sophomore album, my pick for the playlist. Last year I had Teenage Kicks.
Of course,
in case you're wondering, in case anybody's wondering, why not Teenage Kicks? I did try to do a little to search a little bit deeper to see if there was something out there. I did check out the first solo album by Fergal Sharkey, and I don't want to dwell on what I don't recommend so much, but I didn't find as much there. The first two Undertones albums though are quite likable.
And they were a great singles band too. So my pick from the Undertones is Wednesday Week, which is just classic. If you love Teenage Kicks, if you want like that, like teen effervescence, like sneaking out from your bedroom window and whatever, it falls into that category. It's really fun, great pop band, and yeah, there's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say like tragedy, but it's always frustrating to me that they didn't stay together longer. I guess the story being towards the end, if you see some of their live appearances, the band is playing and Fergal Sharkey is like, oh, it's too loud, like,
Mm.
but yeah, and they're a rock band, but I think Fergal Sharkey wanted something more sophisticated, or I don't know. We'll have to call him and we'll see if he.
Yeah. Well,
So Fergal
it's
Sharkey, if you're listening, it's 1-888 left of the dial podcast.com.
1-888-333 LOTD. Yeah, they did have they had a lot of great hooks in those first two albums. Um, a lot of almost like surfy sort of feel to the early tracks, and I like the track that I have on my list. I like the track that you have on yours. There is like a bit of extra magic though to Teenage Kicks, with just from the get go, just from that jump, just that intro with the drums kicking in, and
Teenage.
it
I'm
is.
looking at my arms and just thinking about Teenage Kiss. I got freeze on. I got goosebumps. So
Yeah, it is not hard to understand why John Peel felt the need to just play it multiple times over the air when he first played it.
and he had it played at his funeral.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and yeah, and then
that was his funeral song.
there are lyrics on his tombstone from it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
such a
but
hit, and it's one of those songs where I bet those guys took like 20 minutes to write it, and it's one of those songs that has always existed, and they uncovered it.
yeah, and a pretty decent movie was made about that whole thing a few years ago, called Good Vibrations, which was the label that put that track out, and the record store that the record store that was owned by the guy that discovered the undertones and made put out the record and got it to John Peel. There was a pretty nice little movie made about that a few years ago as well, called
Is
Good
it
Vibrations.
a documentary, or is it fictional? Is it narrative?
Narrative, yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, check it out, guys. Good Vibrations, good rock and roll movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, good one. So I mentioned kind of the backstory of how we, my wife and I. Oh, I wanted to mention that my lovely wife Susan, whom you know, Sean, definitely. I mentioned the premise of this show, and she's like, "Oh, you got to put some cranberries on there." So I want to give a shout out to her.
Oh, there you go. Nice pick, Suze.
Yeah, as always. Yeah. So after we kind of got to following Screaming Orphans, we ended up watching their. It was kind of like it's kind of like this Christmas telethon on Facebook Live of all these groups that normally play the Irish festival circuit in the United States. They were included, but we found a couple other really fun bands, and I'll just go over them really briefly. And if you want to, you can check them out on our Spotify. But found a really great tune by a band that's been around for a long time, and I guess has some real clout over there, called Dervish. And I have them singing The Rocky Road to Dublin, which is a very traditional ballad. But they're interesting. They're from County Sligo, and they were the 2007 Eurovision group for Ireland. So good for you guys. Also found a very chill, talented traditional guitarist named Shane Hennessy. So I have his tune, which is called Sailing to Shore. And then, guys, if you're listening, I'm really sorry, but an unfortunately named band who are pretty good called Socks in the Frying Pan from County Clare on the west coast of Ireland. And they have a nice tune called Sammy's Bar. and yeah, really tight live band. It was it sounds pretty hokey, like something you know but it was nice to see all these groups that are out of a job right now, and a lot of them were playing in neighborhood pubs that were closed because of COVID-19. And yeah, it was a really cozy online concert experience. You know, throughout this year, not seeing live music, um, it's been so neat to see how different artists, groups, and organizations can try and provide that experience to people. And yeah, this was really well done, really cozy. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. My number 5. Going to Belfast now. Well, back to Northern Ireland, if you count the Undertones. But the Undertones track is actually number 7 on my list. So if you're going by the order of my list, and maybe you're looking at it right now because we've already pointed you in that direction. Anyway, Stiff Little Fingers with Roots, Radicals, Rockers, and Reggae from the album Go For It. It's as the title might suggest, I think it has a nice, more of a ska sort of feel to it, ska rhythm, and really good track. I know I told this story last year, but but I'll tell it again.
Yeah, tell it again.
This is like a very very tenuous connection I have with this band, because like, I'm not a big bar goer, as I mentioned, but there was a bar that I used to go to in Chicago to watch Chicago Blackhawks games every now and then, and I found out at one point that Jake Burns, who is the lead singer of Stiff Little Fingers, hangs out there, and like, I didn't realize it was him, but I would see him around, and then kind of after the fact, found out that that's who that was. And, once I found that out, I was just like, oh, I have so many things I'd like to ask him. And I never got the nerve to approach him, though, because he was, like, he was in a place where he's not really trying to draw attention to himself. It's not like seeing him after a show or something like that. And so, like, I never... at that point, like, I had limited opportunities. I think I would have eventually figured out how to be low key enough to approach him about it and not do it in an uncool way. But I never ended up. It never happened. I never never talked to him.
That happens, and yeah, that's such a tricky situation because, yeah, I mean, if you're a super fan, it can get old really quickly for an artist. I've been in that situation a couple times, and I like deliberately not asking those people about the things that they would kind of expect or they're used to. I remember after playing a show with some pretty cool people like Rebecca Gates in Portland, going out to drinks with a bunch of people, including Steve Malkmus, and it was really fun, just like drinking Pabst in a pool hall, and talking about music. We were coming from we played a Townes Van Sant tribute kind of show when the documentary came out, and yeah, just talking to Steve Malkmus about bands that we liked, and Portland and Montessori school, and at one point I took it too far, and I had just bought Steve Malkmus a beer, and we were talking, and then he was like, this band I play in, Pavement. So yeah, it's pretty funny, like when you don't do the obvious thing. It's pretty amusing.
Yeah, well, and I had to figure out how to go about that, but it's just tough because it was definitely a setting where uh, I don't think he was looking for any kind of that sort of attention, so um, that made it tricky. Anyway,
Yeah, I think the rule for me is like, yeah, just talk to people like they're normal people.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I mentioned how often I used to run into Janet Weiss from Slater Kinney when I was seeing shows in Portland, um and yeah, the first couple times there's that look that someone gives you like, oh no, this person's gonna like super fan me.
Yeah, and I have super fan Janet Weiss before because like I'm such a huge fan of her drumming, so like I have done that. But yeah, go on with your story.
But yeah, we just talked about how much we like the go-betweens,
Yeah,
and so we'd have like our quick little chat when we'd awkwardly bump into each other, and yeah, there you go.
yeah, but yeah, I've definitely been on the other side of that with Janet Weiss, where I totally super fanned her.
I've been on all sides of that, as like a huge fan of music and as someone who like wants in a blue moon, has someone geek out on them about my music. So it's all cool. I think deep down, everyone knows it comes from a good place.
One, you have to hope.
You have to hope. Um, yeah. So moving on, I wanna throw in a tune that might feel kind of weird to people, for a couple different reasons, but uh, I put Irish Blood, English Heart by Morrissey on my playlist, and I think you had a question about that.
Yeah, I was thinking, wait a minute. Don't know him to be from Ireland, but you did it because of the subject matter of the song, then I assume, right?
Well, I think I did, yeah, for a couple different reasons. So yeah, Irish Blood, English Heart is not only a really great tune by Morrissey, who I have a lot of trouble listening to most days because of his newfound like right wing whatever, but a lot of the uh, indie and punk rock people that we know and treasure, a large proportion of them share like significant, like a lot of them have Irish immigrant parents or come from very Irish stock and have experienced firsthand some of the discrimination that comes along with that. So you have Morrissey, Johnny Marr, John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten. A lot of the people that we know and love from 1970s and 80s British music are all have some stake in Ireland, and this is a really cool tune about that in some ways.
Cool. Okay, so my next one, I guess there's a bit of an asterisk here because this isn't really a band from Ireland, but it is an Irish band, but an Irish band from New York, Black 47, which I think the most exposure, well, it would have to be the most exposure that they ever really had was they had a video that got some play on 120 Minutes back in the day. I don't know if it ever made it to like more mainstream MTV, but it was a song that that I think mentioned MTV in the lyrics, so that didn't hurt anything. But definitely they belong to that Irish rebel music genre. So very much at home in this playlist, but not a band with Irish origins, but an Irish band, Black 47. I mean, it's right there in the name. And the song that I picked is "The Big Fella," which is from Home of the Brave. I think was released in 1994. Really cool track that that actually I wasn't familiar with until this past week. So this is like this is the breakthrough track on my list. This is the one that I wasn't really familiar with, but ended up making my list this week.
I like it. Yeah, I remember them from remember them showing up in a movie in the 90s.
Wow. You don't remember what it was?
It had give me 1 second. It featured one of the Dylan brothers. Which
Jacob?
I think it may have been Matt Dillon.
Oh, okay.
And you may have to help me out with this, but I think so. He plays a homeless fellow, and yeah, Danny Glover's in it too. The Saint of Fort Washington.
Oh, okay.
About two homeless guys kind of banding together to watch out for each other, and at one point, Black 47 plays in a bar.
Yeah, totally not familiar with that movie.
Yeah, instead of having a social life, I had HBO. So there you have it. I knew it would come in handy.
That's the deep cut of the night. What was the title of it again?
The Saint of Fort Washington.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is from 1993 or so. Yeah. So,
deep cut.
Deep cut. Yeah, man. Speaking of deep cut, this is my next tune is called In a Mist. It's by a band that is similar in some ways to Black 47, that they do have a few Irish people in the band, and other people in the band are of Irish descent. A band called the Drovers, which I know about because my mother, when I was a youngster, was a sound engineer at the local club in Ames, Iowa, and had befriended all these cool people and that were really into music. And this was one of the bands that I think she either found out from her new friends or had worked sound for. So yeah, really, wall of sound, Celtic, American jams. And this is one of their quieter tunes. But another film connection, they show up in a few films in the 90s. I think they were in the movie Blink, and I think they did the soundtrack to Backdraft. So there you go. Yeah.
There you go. Nice. All right, so let me see. I'm going to recap some ones that I already talked about because they're the next tracks on my list. So 7 on my list is Hypnotized by the Undertones, which we've already dealt with. Sally McLennan from the Pogues, from Rum Sodomy and The Lash. Number 8 on my list. So the number 9 track is Looking After Number 1 by the Boomtown Rats.
Cool.
Yeah, thought about so last year I had the Boomtown Rats on my list and had the Elephant's Graveyard. Thought about going I Don't Like Mondays. I figure everybody knows I don't like Mondays at this. That's probably just me. Maybe I should go with I Don't Like Mondays, but I like Looking After Number 1, so I felt like it was a worthy track. If there ends up being a volume 3, that's probably when it will be I Don't Like Mondays.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Yeah, go with your gut, man. If you like it, I like it.
I like it.
You've got good taste.
And yeah, I Don't Like Mondays maybe isn't the most upbeat, celebratory song too. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it lost some of its cool when Garfield came out.
Garfield and Bob Geldof, very much brothers from another mother.
They toured together. So I think I'm kind of spying on your playlist a little bit, which you can find on Spotify.
Look for Shamrockin.
Look for Shamrockin. And I think we both can we talk Van Morrison?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, do you want me to give my track here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the last portion of my playlist is where things mellow down a bit. Although I guess my U2 song was a pretty mellow song. But this is where the mood. I guess this is where the party winds down. This is really the winding down of the evening on my playlist. But sweet thing from Astral Weeks on my playlist. Really good track. Van Morrison isn't somebody that I would, if I saw him at a bar, I would definitely not would not approach him in any way. I would not in any setting approach Van Morrison. I would
Do not approach Van Morrison.
but definitely, definitely had some good tracks. I also wouldn't want to play in his band. This has been addressed a few times on the show where I feel like, okay, so a quick fill in on a discussion that we had.
Yes, please.
I had been, it started with just when we discussed the album Feed and Fleece on the show, that I felt like he had these great musicians playing behind him that really were very unsung, extremely unsung. And but we're doing a great job. And then one night, one of his performances came up on my YouTube feed, so I decided to watch it. And I don't remember what TV show it was from, but there was a spotlight on Van Morrison. All of the light was on Van Morrison, and everybody in his backing band was just immersed in shadows. You could not even see them. So it's a thankless job playing behind Van Morrison, but they made some great music behind him.
Yeah, the album that I go to, probably the only album that I go to by Van Morrison, is Astral Weeks. And yeah, it's a weird, cool tune. I picked out The Way Young Lovers Do. And, I think on this track and a lot of the other ones, you can really tell it's like a take one kind of vibe to it. I guess from what I understand, it didn't have a lot of label support, and they were going to try and I think this is maybe Warner's, the record label. They were going to try and kind of torpedo the album by only giving him 3 sessions, and they had to just really go for it and get the album down on tape. And I think that makes it really special. You can really hear the spontaneity in it, and you can also hear just like the, okay, we hired a flute player. I guess we got to use him. So. Yeah, cool, weird album. And the only one I really go to for Van Morrison consistently.
Yeah, last year on my list, I had Into the Mystic from Moondance. Moondance is a good album as well, I think. But yeah, if you're going full album, I for me it's probably Astral Weeks or Moondance, and then he has his hits here and there.
Oh yeah, so yeah, good pick. Van Morrison is from Belfast, right?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can bring that up.
Yeah, Van Morrison is from Belfast.
All right. Yeah, so spent a lot of time in Belfast, mostly in Dublin for me, but decent chunk of time in Belfast as well.
Yeah,
good representation.
And we're going to go back to County Dublin from Glengarry. I have a Sinead O'Connor track on my playlist. This is a tune that I hadn't really thought about for a long time until I heard a cover of it recently by Phoebe Bridgers. And the tune is Black Boys on Mopeds from her huge hit album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. And yeah, it's another kind of ballady, sad, interesting tune about Margaret Thatcher and Thatcherism and poverty, and I think a really gorgeous, interesting, well-written song, and also really shows off Sinead O'Connor's impressive pipes. She can sing like nobody's business.
Yeah, no doubt, she can really sing. Yeah, my ultimate track. Well, okay. To recap, my penultimate track was where I added "Linger" by the Cranberries. So that was a late add to my list. It was destined all along to be there, but a late add. We've already talked about that a bit. So my last track, definitely where the party has wound down. Sometimes by "My Bloody Valentine" from Loveless. Last year, I had "When You Sleep" on my list because that one is a bit more upbeat and kind of can keep the party going. Sometimes I think is a great track, but not so much the party track. And the what was it, 2013 when the follow up album finally hit?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, MBV. I would definitely pull something from that for this year's playlist, but it is not on Spotify. So for whatever reason, not available on Spotify. So I did go back to Loveless for sometimes.
Yeah, I guess I only have it on vinyl because that's the kind of guy I am.
I have it on vinyl as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun band, and yeah, winding things down. I've got a tune called "Farewell to Ireland," which is a traditional kind of a jig performed by the Dubliners, who are another one of those long-time traditional groups, more or less, been together since 1962. And also from Dublin, as you would expect.
Yeah.
So
they're not. Wait, they're not from Belfast?
Yeah, you never know, man. But yeah, I really enjoyed. You mentioned that we were going to be doing this show, and I wasn't really sure right off the top of my head what was going to happen. So
right. Yeah, I didn't quite know what I was in for myself because having put together a list last year, I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to put together a strong enough list when I pulled out all the aces last year. But I think this is a good follow up, if I do say so myself.
I think you did great. And would you like to tell our listeners about what we're up to next time we convene?
I would, and before I do that, I want to mention that my Bloody Valentine's website is mybloodyvalentine.org. So I don't know if that makes them a not-for-profit or what.
Yeah, join now.
So yeah, they might be looking for sponsors. Okay, so next week, it's, I think, a long overdue look at Elvis Costello. So we have not really done anything remotely around Elvis Costello to this point, but for Richard and I both, like, huge. I mean, how huge for you, Richard?
Declan Patrick Aloysius McManus.
That's right.
Pretty big fan. Yeah.
Yeah, really big. Yeah, and next week we will just go crazy talking about Elvis Costello because it's all this pent up kinetic energy that's going to just explode all over the place.
It's going to be rocking. So, and it'll be ballady.
It might be.
It'll be both.
I think we're gonna have some rockers represented as well, but it's going to be a Covers for Lovers show. We're going to be making playlists of our favorite songs where Elvis Costello was covering others, but then also songs where Elvis Costello is being covered by others.
I love it. I just want to talk about so much right now, but I'm going to save it for the show next week.
Yeah, a lot to talk about next week. It might be like an 8-hour show.
So yeah, if you like this show and you want to hear other shows, Flick, what's the best advice for our listeners?
Well, you can find us, as far as finding our podcast, you can find our podcast most everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google, I think. And yeah, pretty much everywhere. Search LOTD Pod if you don't know if you don't know where to find us exactly, and you can find our Spotify page where we put our playlists by searching LOTD Pod on Spotify, which will also bring up the podcast itself.
Right on. Okay. Well, this has been our St. Patrick's Day special edition of Left of the Dial. And yeah, enjoy your St. Patrick's Day responsibly, everybody. And Gauruma Agut.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be inside in my place enjoying. I gotta find some delivery for corned beef and cabbage. I think that would be great.
Yeah, and whenever you want to go vegan, I'll send you some recipes.
That might take a while.
All right, buddy.
It might be a work in progress, but that progress is oh so slow.
Oh, so slow. I'm a patient dude. Okay, well, you've been listening to Left of the Dial podcast. This is Richard Shirk in Oakland, California,
and this is Flick in Des Moines, where it's dreary again.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll see you when we see you.
We'll see you next week.